Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you clicked on this video because you're curious about what might be the next epoxy river table fad or what might replace it. I'll explain. Stick around. Thanks for being here. All right, so over here by my bird cages, this is a big oak log. I'm not sure if it's white oak or red. My guess is probably red, but it's got this humongous crotch on one end, which I want to use for the chair. So I think what I'm gonna do is cut it maybe there by where that branch comes off. And then I want to cut that end flat because that's going to be where my base goes. I think what I'll do is I've got the chainsaw. I'm just going to start cutting and see if I can extract this big crop section.
Next week he asks, which troubles do you see? Your heart is the root of all weak. I bow my head and hit my I'm gonna hit the
So this thing is pretty darn big. This is up to my waist here. So I need to slim this thing down, but when I'm looking at this, it's almost flat this way and then widens out this way. So I think that should be the back and this should be the front. So I'm gonna just shave this down a little bit because it's still a little bit big. Once I cut into this log, I can see that this is red oak, and this is a really beautiful piece of wood. This log has been air drying for probably 2 years at this point out here behind my barn, and I think at this point it's probably ready to take shape. I'm starting to do the rough work here with my electric chainsaw and a combination of tools. I even end up using a hatchet and a timber framer's chisel at some point, yeah, just to hog out a bunch of that material at once. This stage is all about blocking out the rough dimensions and getting a feel for how the final piece will look. I don't have anything drawn up. I just kind of have an idea in my head about what I've seen on the internet. And as you'll see, I don't want to take too much out at once. So I end up kind of like nibbling away at this thing. And then, you know, I'll do a full section and then like cut the whole thing off because I just don't think it's the right shape and size. Again, red oak is tough. Having a sharp chainsaw and some of these other tools really helps me remove materials quickly. Then I can also keep control of the shape and, you know, not take off too much at once. As you can kind of see here, I'm trying to create a back to this chair, which it's not big enough. It doesn't work out. So you'll see I end up cutting that off like I talked about earlier. The actual design ends up being a lot shorter than I originally had in mind just when I was, you know, looking at this piece of wood. And it kind of ends up being more of a dish or like a bowl shape on top. And then I round out the bottom, which again, you'll see when I start power carving. But for this stage, yeah, it's just a lot of, you know, cutting stuff off, seeing what it looks like, cutting that off, you know, and then just shaping as you see fit. It's actually really fun and just kind of lets you explore your creativity, I feel. And one thing you'll notice in this section is I start out with my rain jacket on, and that ends up biting me when it comes to the finish. Like I said, this log was, I don't know, I think roughly, you know, 2 years old, and it's been sitting there drying, and I underestimated just how much moisture it would suck up once I took all the bark off and started carving on it, and then it rained. It's a bit of a sponge, and, you know, live and learn, but you'll see in the future, yeah, it doesn't quite work out when it comes to putting finish on this thing. So now that the rough shape is in place and you can kind of see it here, again, I attempted to make like a little bit of a back for this thing, but that goes away, as you'll see. Now it's time to move on to the power carving. I just bought the Arbortech Turbo Plane, which has been around for a long time. I'm sure you've seen videos of it on YouTube, but I have not had the opportunity to use one. Now, bought this with my own money, and it's a beast. Like, I probably should have started out using this, well, I should say, I should have put the chainsaw aside and gone right to this, because it's just crazy how much material it will carve away in no time. Arbortech Turbo Plane, love this thing, no affiliation, but you know, I just like want to go out and carve with it because it's really cool. This sort of allows me to start creating that bowl shape, and as you can see here, it's definitely helping me just eliminate that stupid back that I put on it. I don't know what I was thinking there. This is, yeah, forget about that. But I want to take a second and talk about maybe the reason why you clicked on this video in the first place. I watch a lot of Architectural Digest, home tours, just kind of interior design stuff, you know, so I've got ideas in the back of my head, and I feel like these bowl-shaped chairs have been making waves in celebrity home tours. I've been seeing quite a few of them. Diplo, the DJ, he's got like 20 of them in his house, and they're expensive, but they're really, really cool looking. I think this is on its way to becoming the next big trend in furniture design. I really do. We've seen epoxy tables dominate the furniture scene over the last few years, but I think there's something a little more timeless and sustainable about working directly with raw materials like this. We'll come back to that, but at this point, I sit in the chair and then realize it is too heavy for me to lift by myself. So, insert my wife. Well, as it turns out, the rain made this a bit heavier as well. This is kind of when I decided I was in trouble. Anyway, here I go power carving the outside of this. Now you can see I made that nice little bowl shape, but I still need to figure out what I want to do with the outside. I don't want it to look like a total egg, but I want it to stand up and sit on the ground. So I end up just kind of easing the bottom edges with the power carver, and that kind of does it for the power carving. And we move on to the sand. This is a 40 grit flap disc, which I'm almost certain is supposed to be used for metal, but oh my god, does this take away... I mean, this makes sanding almost enjoyable. If you've never used a flap disc on a grinder to sand wood, it is pretty wild. Now, it's not going to leave the best finish, it's not going to be super smooth, but as you can see, it's taking out a ton of those gouges and, marks where, well, the power carver might have gotten away from me a little bit. Once that's done, then I move on to the random orbital sander, which you can see here. I'm using 80 grit, I believe, for the first pass, and this is probably the most time-consuming step, especially on that end grain, as you can see on the top. But, it's a beautiful day out, and I just kind of went for it. I was actually pretty surprised how well this red oak sanded. This is just a Harbor Freight kind of piece of junk sander, but it did the job, and this whole step probably took me 2 hours. You're probably looking at 2 hours of sanding, or with 80 grit, and then I think I move up to 120 in this video, as long as I'm outside here. Next up, I'm addressing a couple of small cracks and imperfections in the wood. These natural flaws are kind of part of the beauty of working with real timber like this, but I do like to just clean up, whatever's inside those cracks, and then I end up filling them with the Starbond super glue. This is the black super glue, and it works really well for this as long as you've got some accelerator to kind of harden it up while you work. This just helps preserve the integrity of the piece without distracting from kind of the organic feel of the whole thing. That's why I use black, and I think it works really well. Once it's filled and dry, it's just a matter of sanding all of that smooth, and then we move on to the finish. So I got it inside on my workbench here. So I let it dry a bit, and I'm gonna sand it up to 180 while we're in here. And then once we're up to 180, you can see I already sanded that crack that I filled in with the super glue. That worked really well. I have a small crack right there, I think, from letting it dry in here for a couple days. But besides that, most of the moisture is out of it, I think. Yeah, let's sand it to 180, and then I'm going to hit it. I'm gonna coat this thing with spar urethane, just like I did my countertops in my kitchen, because it's super durable and it should match, because it's probably gonna go in the kitchen. I'm excited to see what the colors look like. I think this thing's really gonna pop. And now we're on to the final stretch, which is applying finish. I'm using Total Boat Gleam 2.0. That's the spar urethane I picked out. And this is just perfect for giving the chair like a rich, deep finish, but it's also super, super protective and like really rugged. This is the kind of stuff they use on sailboats, to protect it from the elements. I'm going with 6 coats in total, and I'm sanding lightly between each coat to build up a durable, smooth finish. I sand in between with 240 grit, and the end result is just, as beautiful as I could expect. Natural sheen, and it really highlights the red oak's grain. All right, I'm gonna call this good. I am really happy with the way it came out. The finish is not perfect. Now, you've heard me talk about the moisture situation, and I think that's kind of what I'm up against. I've got some, what I would call orange peel. Can you see that in the light? I don't know if that has to do with the moisture content, or if that has to do with me just layering up, basically putting on too much of each layer. A little too thick. I probably should have thinned it out. But the sides, like where there's, not end grain, even this end grain got a little bit orange peely, but stuff like this, like look at the figure in there. That's really cool. And this is all nice and smooth. So I'm pretty happy with that. As this is the first time I've really tried this, I don't know how long you're supposed to let this thing dry. Like, this was drying for 2 years, and yeah, it got rained on, so it got kind of snotty like that, but I don't know. If you guys know, leave me a comment and just be like, you got to let this thing sit for 10 years, or you got to have a vacuum drying procedure done to it, or I don't know, because these exist, so I know it's possible. I'm just not sure how to do it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let's put this in the living room and see what it looks like when Allie gets home. Hopefully she likes it. Let me know if you think this is the next river table / epoxy table fad. I kind of think it is. It's pretty darn cool. It's very natural. Let's put it in there and see what it looks like. Sucker is heavy, Lucy. And there it is, a custom hand-carved red oak chair that blends modern design with traditional craftsmanship. I think this style has real potential to take over as the next big thing in furniture design. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Is power carved furniture the new epoxy table? Could be. Let me know your thoughts, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more woodworking projects. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.